the quarterback room. Let's talk about the quarterback room. Steve Spagnuolo came out today or yesterday and said, man, I love Brock Purdy. I called Brock Purdy. I told him how impressed I was by him. I saw his deal with Gargano and Baldinger, and basically he was very impressed with Brock Purdy. So Purdy, obviously, the one thing positive that came out of the Super Bowl is that Brock Purdy looked comfortable. Which you never know. I mean, there was a chance that the Niners were going to, we talked about it. There's a chance they're going to lose the Super Bowl because of their O-line, and they probably did. There's a chance they're going to lose the Super Bowl because their D-line can't, and their defense overall can't stand up. That was a potential issue. It didn't wind up costing them the game, even though the D gave in a little bit at the end. But I'd say defensively they held up. Mm-hmm. And then there was a chance that they were going to lose the Super Bowl because Brock, the moment was going to be too big, and he was going to throw picks, and he was going to be overwhelmed, and against a really good defense on a fast surface in that environment. Even Tony Romo talked about it in the first quarter of the Super Bowl. He's like, this moment might be too big for this kid. It wasn't. So the moment wasn't too big for Brock. So Brock is definitely comes out of the Super Bowl, even though the Niners lost. It's a weird thing. It's like, I almost felt like if the Niners lost the Super Bowl, this offseason was going to be a big discussion about, is Brock good enough? But I think that ultimately they lost the Super Bowl, but I think most people would say that Brock is good enough. I think one of those two veterans, Brandon Allen or Sam Darnold, is back as his number 2 guy. I'll say it's Brandon Allen. But that means there's going to be a third quarterback in the room. And I don't think Sam Darnold's coming back. So then the question is, who do you want that third quarterback to be? And some people may say, hey, go get Carson Wentz. He's a free agent, which is an intriguing name. Other people may say, no, go find somebody in the draft. Heck, you found Purdy in the draft. Go if you're, whoever liked Purdy, maybe go ask him who he likes this time around.
You got a Purdy equivalent?
Well, I don't have somebody who I think's a Purdy equivalent, but I was watching I watched an hour-long video podcast yesterday with Dane Brugler, who's my favorite draft guy. And Brugler was going through the draft, and he says that that J.J. McCarthy is going to go in
Michigan.
the first round. Yeah, and there's a lot of people that love J.J. McCarthy.
I like him.
Brugler had, and the Niners are, let's be honest about this, the Niners are not going to take a quarterback in the first round or the second round, probably. But he has Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and J.J. McCarthy. All those 4 guys going in the first round. And then he has Bo Nix and Michael Penix going in the top 50 picks. And so basically in the second round. So he's got 6 quarterbacks in the first 2 rounds of the draft.
I think Joe Milton may be in there too.
I was going to say, who is that? I mean, it's funny you say Joe Milton, because Joe Milton, I went and, I went through all the quarterbacks.
I'm impressed by him.
And I'm a big Michael Penix guy, but Penix, and he has huge hands. They say he's maybe going to the Raiders or Vikings or Falcons in the 40s, which still to me seems really late for Penix. And I'll stay with it. I think Penix for sure is a first-round draft choice. But there's medicals that have to be investigated there. And there's medicals that have to be investigated on a number of guys, but definitely Penix. So there's Penix, there's Spencer Rattler, Michael Pratt from Tulane, Sam Hartman from Notre Dame, Joe Milton from Tennessee, Carter Bradley, who's Gus Bradley's son for
Tua's little bro,
Tua's little brother,
Talia
played for Maryland,
Michael Ayers from Samford too.
Yeah, there's him. There's Jack Plummer, who was at Cal and transferred to Louisville. There's a few other guys. Frank Harris from Texas San Antonio, Keydon Slovis. I guess the Niners.
You haven't said my Brock Purdy. You haven't said my Brock Purdy equivalent yet, though.
Okay, but Keydon Slovis, supposedly the Niners have already met with him.
Really?
And I can't stand Keaton Slovis. I didn't like him at SC. I just think he's not my guy, but he is kind of Brock Purdy-esque in that he completes a high percentage of his passes. But I don't know. I'm not a Keaton Slovis guy, but I do love and then there's John Reese Plumlee
Haven't
from
said my
Central
guy yet.
Florida. There's Tanner Mordecai from Wisconsin. Brennan Armstrong from NC State. Devin Leary, Kentucky.
Devin Leary. That's my guy.
Leary?
Devin Leary
he's very
my
accurate.
Brock Purdy comp. I like Devin Leary, man. He doesn't have necessarily the greatest like wow arm, but he's accurate. He throws with a ton of touch. He's athletic. He can get the ball out. I like Devin Leary, and he's consistent. Give Devin Leary a look when you get a chance. I like Devin Leary's my guy.
To me, the guy that's so impressive is Joe Milton. Joe
is awesome.
Joe Milton has to be, I'd take a flyer on that guy. He's 6'5", 6'6", 235. He's got a huge arm. We're talking about
country mile.
We're talking about like almost like
Jamarcus Russell.
He's like a carnival, like a guy that, at a carnival could throw. This guy could throw the ball like 100 yards in the air, but then he can also throw it on the run. He
runs a 4.6.
Yeah, he's a big time athlete. Now he's moved around. He was at Michigan. He transferred to Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy can throw the deep out from the far hash and just stick it in there like nobody ever has. This is one of the great arms of the game.
And he played 9 games through 10 TDs and had no picks in 2022. All right. And then he backed it right back up. He got hurt in 2022. And then in 23, he threw 20 TDs for 5 picks for 2,800 yards, 64% completion rating. This kid has a gun. If you want a quarterback where the secondary has to cover literally every blade of grass, this kid is a threat just being on the field.
This year, he completed 65%, 20 touchdowns, 5 picks. He was sacked 16 times, but he had a 147.3 rating for Tennessee. And they have they got a pretty good runner in Jalen Wright as well, and Jabari Small. They're both in this draft, both good running backs. As far as their receivers, I don't know how great their receivers are. Tennessee usually has great receivers, but I think Joe Milton III is a sleeper pick. Now, he's a Florida kid who went to Michigan, transferred to Tennessee, as I said. But I think he's probably going to go probably 4th round, something like that. And he didn't, he only played really 1 year at Michigan, and he was there 18, 19, and 20. But he only had 11 pass attempts in the first 2 years. But his completion percentage has jumped almost every year. He 10 touchdowns, no picks last year, 20 touchdowns, 5 picks this year. So if you just go what he did at Tennessee, we're talking about 32 touchdowns and 5 interceptions in 3 seasons. It's not bad. That's not bad. And he's been sacked 16 times this year.
Now, I will say this. I will say this about him. Like, he's got a plus arm, and one thing about his plus arm is he's got beautiful deep ball accuracy. You know what I'm saying? Throwing the ball a country mile doesn't mean anything if you can't give your guy a chance to catch it. He's obviously athletic, but my thing about him is that in today's NFL, you do have to be a little bit of a point guard. You got to be able to get the ball out quick and be able to get it to short, intermediate passes and be athletic. And be accurate with those passes. The only thing about him is that when I do watch him, I don't see much quick processing, all right, where he's going from read to read. And I don't necessarily see any type of short, accurate throws where he layers anything. So I see a lot of wow out of him, but I don't see any like day to day. And, with quarterbacks, everything is about mastering the mundane. And we learned that with Trey. There were so many plus things about Trey, but it was the little things. It was the routine, consistent things that keep the sticks driving. So I will say I haven't seen that from Joe Milton.
No, I know. I mean, it's a projection. It's a projection because his ability is in his crazy arm strength, inexperience. This guy, but the ability's there. I would say this: you have your starter and you have your solid backup relief pitcher. If I'm going to take a third spot on the roster, I want to take a big swing at somebody who could be a great quarterback. Why? Because if you take a big swing and he winds up being a great quarterback, look what you can trade him for. I mean, if Joe Milton came out and looked great, and with the Niners' weapons and an improved offensive line, he might look great. Look at how many teams might be willing to line up to give you, maybe multiple first-round picks. I mean, I'm just saying, let's just say you played a 5-game stretch and Brock Purdy got hurt, and you went to Joe Milton, and Joe Milton came off the bench and played great ball for you. I mean, that would give the team a tremendous asset. And I'm just looking at that going, you know what, Joe Milton, and I've heard him interviewed. He's got a great team attitude. He's very much a team guy. My buddies who have been in Knoxville say he's the leader, that this guy is absolutely the Vols leader. So you know what, that he would be the guy that I would go for. And even if I had to, even if it was a high day 3 pick, 4th round, 5th round, I'd rather move some picks around, get an extra pick, and go draft Joe Milton than just sign another veteran. I'd really like to see them go for somebody high end as just a backup and take a flyer, because, even Trey Lance, even though he had struggled, they still got a 4th round pick for him. Now they invested 3 1s for him, so it wasn't good. But this would be the opposite of that. This would be, I think there's a chance that they invested 3 1s in Trey and got a 4th. I think this is the opposite. I think this is the kind of guy you might be able to invest a 4th and get 2 1s. You know what I mean? Coming back in a couple of years. So I love Joe Milton in this class. Now, Carter Bradley's intriguing to me. There's a few other guys. I definitely think I would go for the rookie over the veteran, but that's my guy, Joe Milton. If they can get Milton in the 4th or 5th round, that would be exciting as hell to see what this kid could look like in Shanahan's offense. With who else
is a sneaky guy that I would like to see that kind of falls in the same ilk, because this is what we have to do. Joe Milton is awesome. I believe that in a vacuum, but Joe Milton does not fit the 49ers, right? We've seen the athletic quarterback be
He's kind of like, he reminds me a little bit of Kaepernick in that doesn't throw with tons of touch, but the arm strength is off the chain. And then you don't think of him as a runner because he's huge, but then you start watching him run and you're like, wait a second, this guy's got running ability as well. I mean, this is a major talent.
Okay, and I understand that, but I don't trust Kyle with major talents. I think Kyle needs somebody that we got to understand who we're dealing with here. I think Kyle wants to deal with somebody that can actually utilize his offense, because I don't see Kyle getting Joe Milton comfortable. I see Kyle getting faith in Joe Milton if Joe Milton can exercise his scheme the right way. That's why I would go to this quarterback. How about Jordan Travis from Florida State? All right. Recently had been injured before, has low interceptions, knows how to lead his team, and he gets the ball out really quick. He's also kind of a little bit more of a uptick athletically from Brock Purdy. The only thing now, mind you, me and you both like Joe Milton. We both went in. But what changed my mind is the moment you said, if Brock Purdy goes down, wouldn't you want Joe Milton to come in? And my immediate answer in my head was, hell no. Because That's asking Kyle to do what he doesn't do. And that's adjust on the fly, call a whole different game plan, know how to get Joe Milton ready based off of what he's seen in practice, the little reps he does have because he's not starting. And that's just not the way our football team is ran. We know that the ones get the majority of the reps. If you are a 3 or a 2 on this team, you better fight like hell to get an opportunity, or somebody's going to get hurt. So if Brock Purdy was going down, what would I want to come on the field? Another Brock Purdy or close to it. So Kyle can keep calling the same plays so he can stay in the same scheme, because the offense is about Kyle, okay? That's why Brock is so special. He's able to spin whatever Kyle puts out into gold, right? That's why this is the Niners way now. We got to get quarterbacks that know how to translate what Kyle wants. I like Jordan Travis if we were going to do that. I don't want another quarterback on the team that's a completely different skill set from what we already have starting, because you do see that on teams, right? You see the mobile quarterback where the pocket passer may be the starter and the mobile quarterback may be the backup, because not only is he a change of pace, but if he was to go down, now the game plan is out anyway for our old quarterback. We'll just come in with this package and run with this. That's traditional, but that's not what we do. If we have a back, we saw what happens with our team when quarterbacks get hurt. Go back to Philly. Brock got hurt. We called the same exact stuff. We called the same exact stuff for the backup quarterback to come in. Like, Kyle is not changing. All right. So I want a quarterback that looks like Brock.
Here's the one thing. I don't need him to look like Brock. I need him to
not literally look like Brock, but have the same skill set rather.
But the one thing about Brock that people don't realize is that he's got high level mobility. Mm-hmm. He really does. So, like, I look at Brandon Allen as just a stopgap. Like, okay, Brock goes out of the game. It's the mid-4th quarter. You need someone to come off the bench and finish the game. That's it. You need Brock's out for one game. You need someone to start one game. That's the guy. But if Brock went down for half the season, I'd feel much more comfortable with Sam Darnold than Brandon Allen. Why? Because Sam Darnold has bigger stature. There's more things you can do with him. He's just a bigger talent than Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen, I think, is probably a better relief pitcher off the bench. I'm just looking at Joe Milton, and I'm saying, if Brock were down for any period of time, who could I put in there that could actually really do something?
Shot in the arm. Yeah,
I think Joe's the guy. The other thing is, if you go and I did the deep dive on the guy is a unique guy. I mean, it's taken him a while to harness his immense physical ability, but you're also talking about a kid who's the oldest of 7 children. So he's kind of been the adult in his family for a long time. He's also Anquan Bolden's cousin. Of course, Bolden played for the Niners.
Pedigree.
He's also really, really mature kid. This kid's already graduated with a bachelor's degree from the University of Michigan in 2021. And now he's working on a second bachelor's degree at Tennessee in a totally different field. So, he's a very mature kid. He moved to Orlando from where he was living for his freshman year of high school. He was roommates with Hendon Hooker for a couple of years at Tennessee, and he's just, you hear him interviewed, you can kind of tell that he's already kind of been examined and studied, and he's felt the scrutiny because he's such a crazy athlete, and Michigan was such a big spot to be. And then this kid's played. The other thing is, this kid's played in 2 big conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC. And when you can play in the Big House and in Knoxville, those are just, we're talking about 100,000 plus people in those places. I just think there's a lot of proven elements to Joe Milton. So we'll see where he goes. But I'm looking at the draft breakdown, and they have him listed as the 10th quarterback in the draft. Caleb 1, Drake May 2, Jaden Daniels 3, Penix 4, Bo Nix 5, JJ McCarthy 6. This is the one list. One other list, I see McCarthy in front of Penix and Nix. Then there is 7 is another guy that is really intriguing to me. The MVP of the Senior Bowl was Spencer Rattler, who, was at Oklahoma and then transferred to South Carolina. He's pretty freaking athletic at 6 feet, 215 pounds. Very athletic kid. And I kind of like what I saw from him in the bowl game or in the All-Star game. Then there's
maturity issues, though. I've been hearing, I've heard some off-field stuff about Spencer Rattler. That's not
good.
Yeah.
Then there's Michael Pratt from Tulane, who I think is pretty decent. You mentioned Jordan Travis, then Joe Milton, then Sam Hartman, then Devin Leary, then Carter Bradley, who I kind of like from South Alabama. Then Austin Reed from Western Kentucky. Then Talia Tagovailoa, who's only 5'10", from Maryland. There's Phil Jerkovec from Pitt, Brennan Armstrong from NC State. So, and then he goes down the list, and Keaton Slovis is down at 24. And not a big Keaton guy. But Milton, to me, is intriguing. And to me, that is the kind of pick that you could make and go, what? Joe Milton fell to the 4th round? I mean, 150 means 30, 1 through 30 is the first round, 1 through 65 is the second round, 1 through 100 is the third round. So we're talking about 4th, 5th round for Joe Milton. He's 6'5", 245.
I mean, he's a house. I just don't want to see him running quarterback power over and over again.
I hear you, but that is the kind of mid-round pick that would make me go, fuck yeah. That's an amazing.
Yeah, that is a kind of that's a nut grabber pick. It's what?
It's a home run swing. It's a home run swing in the middle of the draft.